Hello and welcome to another episode of Unfulfilled. I'm your host, Luke Blaine, and today I'm joined by Kyle from pb+j. Kyle is their co-founder along with Tom. pb+j were established in September 2012 and they partnered with D2C e-com brands with Shopify Plus. I'm going to get Kyle to talk through how they work with their patrons and their areas of expertise. pb+j have worked with some huge brands, won numerous awards, and increase their patrons' revenues with their work. We'll discuss this and much, much more. We're going to discuss Kyle, his Canadian roots, the fact he's here in the UK now, the podcast he does with Tom, and much, much more in regards to the future of pb+j too. So without further ado, that's quite a big start, but
My goodness. I don't know how I'm going to fit my head through this podcast, Luke. That's quite an introduction. I appreciate it. Honored to be here and looking forward to chatting with you today.
good man. So for people who don't know who you are, and I know I've given a bit of an overview, but if you could tell them a bit more about yourself. I know you're here in the UK now, sort of what brings you here and the plans really.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, so Canadian by birth, as one, that's how you become Canadian. But I ended up here in the UK after the pandemic, which as many of us might remember, we decided we all need to work from home, which made sense at the time. And pb+j has always been flexible, but we had an office, and then post pandemic we decided to stay remote, and so my partner in life was doing some performing here. She's a classical vocalist, some opera, that kind of stuff in the cathedrals. And with pb+j staying remote, we decided, let's go and explore this. Let's try this. Our kids are young. There's an opportunity here. And that's how we ended up in the UK.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of like a personal adventure. But now that I'm here, it's been really cool to meet people like you, Luke, and the e-commerce ecosystem in the UK has been incredibly vibrant and welcoming, and I'm excited to be here.
Nice. So when did you make the move across? How long have you been here for?
Yeah, about a year, last August. So August 2022, right? Is that,
Yeah.
am I doing my years right?
Yeah.
I did it. I'm
Well-
doing math. You're like, Kyle, you run a company. You know how to
Yeah.
do math, right, Kyle?
Well, hopefully anyway. So for people who don't know about pb+j, like how would you explain like what makes you different and sort of the work that you deliver?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I think we're on a constant journey to keep fine tuning that. As we're positioned in e-commerce as an e-commerce agency focused on helping brands grow, we focus with mid-market brands, and for us, that's typically they've got 5 to 50 million GMV, and typically they're at a point of transformation and they need some sort of like unnormal or different thinking, and we come alongside them in kind of two main ways to help them grow. Either they're looking for a full kind of like redesign of their Shopify store, which, as we all know, is like the mothership of revenue. So we might be doing a full overhaul, design dev, or the other way that we're partnering a lot lately has been in growth partnerships. We're doing a lot of CRO work, so a lot of conversion revenue optimization, getting into retention as well, doing some email, SMS loyalty. But really, the growth partnerships are, and where we're trying, this is where we're going, is more about, it's about defining what are your goals, what do you want to grow to, and what are the metrics that would move that? What's the conversion rate, AOV, LTV that would drive that? And then let's design a roadmap for the next 3, 6, 12 months that drives those metrics for you. And that's the kind of growth partner that we're trying to be more and more outside of those projects where it's like, let's do a full rehaul.
That's okay. And obviously during my intro, I referred to your clients as patrons, and that's quite a cool thing to sort of talk through as well, because I know that's a key, I guess, differentiator between yourself and other agencies, the fact of like, the patrons element. So can you talk through sort of, I guess, the why and sort of what the difference is in your mind as well?
Yeah, it's a good question. And this is like something that is so interesting to explore with the team too, because I think we're so used to talking about clients, right? So, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with clients. What I say to the team is there's nothing wrong with being a client in an agency. What we're trying to reframe is, clients exchange money for a service. and that's okay, that's good. But patrons, they invest in a cause. And so what we're trying to do is find find brands that are looking to invest in kind of two ways into their own cause. They believe in their mission, what they're doing, and they're investing into it through us. And so that's that patron relationship. And then also that they're aligned to our values and our mission to make commerce joyful and human-centered. We're aligned and we're co-investing into that kind of broader cause. So, at the end of the day, I get it. People are like, well, aren't they still clients? Sure. Right. They're still exchanging money for services, but it's a reframing of trying to go, these are about, people coming and investing into a cause together.
Yeah. And working in partnership, I guess, as well, right? In terms of you actually delivering what they're trying to do and then working in partnership with you for that project as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great way to put it.
And in terms of e-com itself, like, has pb+j always been an e-com agency, or have you sort of transitioned into it, as you mentioned about fine-tuning over the time?
Yeah, great question. When Tom and I met in design school, actually, so we've got a great co-founder story that, having lunch over talking about typefaces, because we're that cool. We started out and said, hey, we've got different strengths. Let's start a design studio. And about 11 years ago, Tom and I did that. Did a lot of branding, started to get into web design, digital marketing, kind of classic, like, let's do a corporate design studio thing.
Yeah.
And over the years, started to do some e-commerce. And there was a moment, I'd say about 5 years ago, we read David C. Baker's Business of Expertise. If you've not read it and you're listening to this and you're an agency, like, check it out. It'll challenge you. And David C. Baker is such a great thought leader for agencies. And his whole hypothesis in this book is we don't need more generalists. Like, the world doesn't need another generalist design studio. What's your expertise? And then also with that expertise, and you fine tune that, you can then also start to like command the pricing conversation better and deliver better value and all that kind of good stuff. So we read this book, long story short, and said, well, what is it? We do kind of do everything. We were doing like HubSpot marketing. We were doing all this stuff. And we took the e-commerce. We've probably done about, maybe 30% of the stuff that we were doing was in e-commerce. And we said, what are we really good at? What do we love doing? And what is their money in? What can we make money at? As much as we love doing websites for bands, because that was a lot of fun, there's only so many band websites you can do till there's no money left. And e-commerce is where we landed and just kept fine tuning. About 3 years ago, I'd say we were all in. And there's a funny kind of like pre-COVID story. We can go there if you want, but basically went all in on e-commerce. And that's where we are today. 95% of what we do is all Shopify e-commerce.
Amazing. And was that decision made pre-pandemic, or was it like, is that the funny story, or was there more to it?
This is the funny story, if you want to hear it, is, so we read this book and we're like, we're going to, we got to pick the thing. So we spend, a year kind of soul searching, make the brave decision. And we go, this is the hill we're going to be on. And we had a bunch of patrons at the time that didn't align to that. Digital marketing clients, we were doing like inbound marketing. And the story is, anyways, we decide it's like December of 2019, I guess. And we're like, we're going to offboard all these clients, some of them retainers, but we're going to make the brave move. We got to like help them go on to somewhere else so we can go where we need to go. And I remember getting on a call with some of our patrons. I think it was January 2020. And I remember distinctly, wishing them well, helping them get to another agency. And like, these were like, decent recurring revenue, but we knew it was the right move. And I was like, this is scary, but it is the right thing because we're going to go there. And then like 3 weeks later, the pandemic hits and the world stops. And Tom and I sat down, we're just like, what did we do?
Yeah.
We just fired like a good chunk of our clients in effort of this. And no one bought anything for like 2 months. And that was really scary. Of course, in the end, e-commerce did just fine. And so we kind of went from managing this scarcity to managing like hyper growth over the pandemic. But it was just like, I was like, I can't believe we just like fired or offboarded those patrons. Like, we needed that money.
Yeah.
The pandemic's here. What's going on?
You were signed your own death certificate almost.
Oh my gosh. We made, yeah, it felt like that, but we made it through.
Good. And as you say, like e-com has been one of the main areas that has been that growth, since that time, hasn't it? And there's still a ton
Yeah.
of challenges, obviously, around it, but
Yeah.
you made a good decision, mate. Like, I know it probably didn't feel like it when that all hit, and you're like,
In time.
what have we done? But
Yeah. Did you, and I'm curious too, like for you, have you always been focused in e-commerce or like when was that shift for you?
yeah, no. So previous to my role now within Fulfilled, I've been working within a commercial recruitment agency, and I was there
Yeah.
I joined there in the the end of 2016. So we weren't a e-com focused agency. I would say
Yeah.
like towards the end of my tenure, which was probably like coming out of pandemic and towards that sort of 21, 22 sort of time, we moved in.
Yeah.
I moved into more of like a digital marketing, creative marketing, which then sort of went down that like
Yeah.
brand direct to consumer e-com sort of space.
Yeah.
And then when we decided to do Fulfilled, it was, as you had that same conversation with yourself and Tom,
Yeah.
it was like
Yeah.
myself and two other guys sat there and were like, what sector do we want to focus on, and what was it?
Yeah.
And we talked
Yeah.
about loads of different ones, but e-com was
Yeah.
one we kept coming back to.
Yeah.
And I mean, I probably didn't realize how amazing the sector was, if that makes sense. Like, I probably didn't give it
Yeah.
enough credit. But now I've been in it
Yeah.
only for a few months, but now I'm in it. Like, it's incredible. And the collaboration, the partnerships, the opportunities, the fact that agencies actually work together, like in our world of recruitment, that's quite
Yeah.
like, you wouldn't really get two recruitment companies working in partnership to deliver for a client, because usually it's like that, isn't it? It's like, they're my client,
Yeah.
it's that competitive nature.
Yeah.
So like, I want to change that. I don't mind partnering with other businesses, whether it's recruitment or not, because if you're giving the best service
Yeah.
to your client or your patron,
Yeah.
then that's what
Yeah.
matters, really. Like, for me, that's
Totally.
what it's all about.
That's awesome. That's what fulfills you.
Well played. Thank you.
But we've got 10 of these I've got to get in before the end of the podcast.
Absolutely.
So keep it on brand. That's brilliant. That's awesome.
I'm interested now in your name, like PB&J. Like, or when I think of that, I just think peanut butter and jelly. But why PB&J
Yeah.
for you? Is that literally what it was? Was it two youngsters thinking, what's a cool name, and that was it?
It was, it's a fun story actually. So at the time before we had moved to PB&J, the agency was called Strata, actually was the name, and it was this kind of corporate-y, like, let's be a super professional design agency. And we sat down and said we want to do like kind of a sub brand that's a little more our personality, but it originally started about kind of like helping the renegades win, like the smaller businesses, not the corporate. And so we sat down and thought, like, what's that name? And we want it to be something that feels professional, but it's tongue in cheek. So PB&J came about as this idea that, like, hey, it's going to feel like it's like an accounting firm, maybe, that's named after the partners. And this still happens. And people go, well, who's the PB and who's the J? And we're like, no, it's literally the sandwich, peanut butter and jam. And it's the best moment. I love that moment. They're like, wait, you named your agency after a sandwich? I'm like, absolutely, we did. So it's a personality, it's tongue in cheek, and then kind of the meaning behind it, I guess, is twofold. One is, we take our work seriously because it's like a great sandwich, but we don't take ourselves too seriously, so kind of that piece. But the other piece is made for each other. And we talk a lot about that idea of peanut butter and jam. It's that classic that goes together. I'm learning it's not as big of a thing here for kids in the UK, but in Canada, US, it's a staple. Peanut butter, it goes together like peanut butter and jam. And that's what we want to be for our patrons, things that are made for each other.
I literally have never had a peanut butter and jam sandwich my whole life. So it's definitely not a UK thing.
I'm showing up at these events over the past year in the UK, and I'm like, PB&J, like the childhood classic. And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, the sandwich. And they're like, I'd never ate that in my life.
Never.
It's like, oh, this is a great lesson in what works in one country might not work in another.
That could be a whole different podcast idea, that. Yeah, no,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, no. UK, it's more like standard, like ham or cheese or like tuna or some of that, rather than
We should, so we got to have like the ham and cheese. That's going to be ham and cheese is the name of the PB&J agency in the UK. It's just ham and
maybe,
cheese.
maybe. You could probably call it BLT. Is probably a better one to use because that is still like keeping the acronyms, isn't it?
I like that. BLT. Yeah, BLTs are good too.
Anyway, going way off track here.
Yeah, there we go. And that's it. See you later.
I guess like for me, like the questions that I want to like be really keen about is like these success stories around the patrons that you've had. So I don't know if you can talk to me about a couple of the awards you've won, maybe them campaigns. And I want to know like from like first point of instruction of what was their idea, what did you sort of talk about, and then what did it become almost. I know from doing these and having conversations, people come to agencies with what they believe is their problem. But then when you actually break into it, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Actually, the root cause is a lot bigger. So I'm quite keen to hear about how you guys sort of attack that.
Yeah, great. That's a great question. Yeah, I think some of them that stick out to me that I'm most proud of are the ones, the brands that are trying to do something new. They're trying to get into, like, I think there's two that come to me. One, in the midst of the pandemic, they were a B2B business that had a product that could go direct to consumer. It fit well for the pandemic. And so they said, hey, we want to go direct to consumer with this. We have no idea. We've been selling at trade shows for the last 25 years. We have no idea what we're doing. And so it was like, let's make a Shopify store. And that's where the conversation started. But where it pulled back was actually, and this is really common what we see now with brands that come to us with this kind of challenge is, well, sure, we can like get you live on a technical like solve for Shopify or selling. But the real challenge is you're not understanding that it's a different customer, right? So when you're selling B2B and selling B2C or now D2C, really different person. And the way that we had to step back and go, okay, so what's the ideal customer now? It's different. What's the brand story? And we kind of stepped back and went into branding and this kind of stuff that we don't always do, but it was part of this journey of like stepping away from what we think is like the technical problem of like, let's sell something online to, why do people even care about this? And how do we go about getting it to them and making them want it and care for it? And that was really like, I love those challenges and we love those challenges. And then, of course, compounded because it was like, we got to go live in 2 months. It was like, how do we do this in like 2 months, which was this whole nother story, but got it there, got it done. And the similar kind of thing, another one that's been a really great success, a large brand, Lancino actually is, they're a large CPG brand in the US, Canada. They sell a lot of products for new moms, breastfeeding, that kind of stuff. And they've always been retail focused, but they've never been direct to consumer. And so they came to us and said, hey, we want to be direct to consumer. We want to open up a channel, but just trying to still figure it out. And so there's a lot of that guidance of, hey, we got to get like online. There's a technical piece for sure, but it's the translating that brand story, that brand voice, like how is it going to work? Why is it going to work? And that's been really a cool, like another kind of sprint. We got to get it ready for, they were launching a big campaign for International Women's Day. And of course, as it always goes, right, this is like 4 months before. And it's like, okay, well, we got to get it live for this date. And so we had to retool a process and all that stuff to get it there. But it was great and it was fulfilling because they're also really aligned to that those values that we're trying to, how do we leverage commerce to make the world at least a bit better? And the thing I love about Lancino is that they're trying to destigmatize breastfeeding and just like make the world better for moms. And it was really cool. So that is a values aligned project that had this challenge of translating from retail to D2C. And it was all in this nice tight timeline. So yeah, there's two for it. Are those interesting?
Oh, very
Should we
good.
keep them in?
No, they're great. They're great. I mean, what I'm hearing, I guess, in terms of how you guys work is it's that, I say that values piece as well is mega important because as an agency, I guess you can't be too picky, obviously, because you need to make sure there's money coming through the door to pay the bills. But if you can find projects 100%. That are actually going to get you interested or excited or your creative sort of juices flowing, that's where probably the best work comes from, isn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's like, there's lots of stuff that you do, but it's kind of like, what's the dream stuff that you pursue? And when you're able to get those gigs, it really does, light you up and drive the team for sure. Yeah, it's a great question. I'm pretty open with this with a lot of agencies, like what's working for us, what's not. What we found success with in terms of like getting new clients, referrals are always big, and I know everybody says that, but it's as you do good work and you keep going, and ecom directors and founders, they all talk to each other. So I think as like what I've come to learn over the past 10 years, 3 years, whatever, many years is we think sometimes it's this big process, and really it's like a bunch of founders in a WhatsApp group going like, who'd you work with that actually delivered?
Yeah.
And so if we can take that approach and do good work and stay connected, it's great. We've also found really a lot of success through like referral or like review sites. So we're really adamant about our patrons filling out reviews on clutch.co. And that's been a really great lead source for us to kind of keep attracting folks. That's been good. And then through partnerships and community, that's the other like a big one. We're tech partners, agency partners, and just being in the community. We're also trying to develop our own community through Commerce Chefs, little plug for e-commerce founders. But as we're developing that, it's about being part of community and relationships. They really drive it. So yeah, those are the three big for us.
Great. And going back to what you talked about in regards to PB&J, know their expertise like lane now, which is that branding, design side and development. What happens sort of when a client needs, for example, like paid ads, or they need a really strong SEO or affiliate? Like, do you have a set of partners that you then work with to bring them into projects?
Yeah, absolutely. And usually don't even bring them into projects. We'll often refer out. So there's, some paid agencies that are great at what they do. And we'll give the choice to the patron. Hey, here's 2 or 3, here's the different strengths, the focuses. What do you want to do? Or you bring in someone to the table, and then we'll kind of collaborate as, a set of agencies on the project. So we're really focused in primarily on conversion. How do we, use design and CRO to drive conversion, and we're moving into retention. But yeah, absolutely, when it comes to acquisition, whether it's ads or SEO, we know there's other great experts out there, so refer them out.
Nice. And in terms of the team then, so being fully remote now, or majority remote, how have you kept that same culture, values? How have you done that?
Yeah, it's tough. It's different. I think some of the things that have worked for us is I think this is from I think it's the Basecamp founders that said this about remote culture, because they've been remote for a long time, which is remote forces you to kind of take a step back and go, what are our real values here? And what are the things that drive those? And you have to become a lot more intentional about that. I think, so the things that like maybe we would like lean on in a default way and in person, you just have to be a lot more intentional about that. And so some things like could be little things. Like, for example, I try to study and steal like an artist from other remote cultures. So a lot of really successful, they do things like check-ins and checkouts. So for example, at the beginning of a meeting, instead of just jumping right in, often we'll take 5 minutes and do a check-in. And that might be something as simple as like, what's your emoji right now? Or it might be like, hey, what's the one thing you want to get out of this meeting today? And those little moments kind of create some of that like human, they bring us into the space, they create human connection. And they also try to create some of those in-between moments, those water cooler moments that just don't happen when you're, so little things like that, all the way to bigger things where we're trying to get people back together like once a year and do it in person, 3-4 day and have that space. Or the last year as the world's opened back up, just get out to events together. I'm out at a conference. Hey, you're in the area. Let's go and let's have dinner together and just try and create some of that space.
Amazing. And talking about team then, because one thing that I love about your website is your Meet Team page. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about, I know it goes back to what you mentioned about in regards to being a bit tongue in cheek in regards to the name and having that ability to show that you're not you're a professional, but you've a bit of a laugh and a bit of a tongue in cheek culture as well. So like For people
Yeah.
who haven't seen your website, can you tell people what I'm talking about, please?
Yeah. So yeah, picture this: you go to the team page, and you get a randomized grid of everyone's photo, and then when you hover over the person's face, it swaps it with a GIF that they've chosen. That and the instruction is when you get hired, pick a GIF that best represents you. And what's the GIF? And some people have the Spider-Man
Yeah.
GIFs. Some people have whatever. I've got the Napoleon Dynamite. You can't see this if you're listening to audio, but the yes, that thing, which I just feel is like, I don't know. I feel very Napoleon Dynamite, and that's how I feel. I celebrate. So
Amazing.
it's it's a fun little way to represent personality.
What's the best one on there, apart from yours, obviously, do you think? Or the best one you've seen?
Jeez.
Like, yeah.
Oh, that is the best one. Obviously, no. I love the ones. We've got a couple people that are out on maternity leave, and the thing that I loved was we changed them out to like some like funny baby gif of like slamming food on the ground or something. So it's just I love that. It's like if you know this person's on that leave, and it's
Yeah.
like this baby slamming food here.
What
So
I'm
I like
trying
those.
to what I'm trying to think now is that if I were to join PB&J, or if I were to copy slash steal your idea
Yes,
when I
go
do
ahead.
when we do our meet the team page, like what would our my gift be? I want to come back to that. Might have to,
Oh yeah, what would it be?
I don't know. There's a lot of good gifts out there, isn't there? One of my favourite ones,
I
which
know.
again, this is very difficult to showcase if you're just listening to it, but there's a GIF if you like, I share with a lot of my mates because they I play football, manage a football team. A lot of them think they've
Yeah.
got they're God's gift in terms of stuff they say. And there's a GIF. I don't know what film it's from, but they're like rubbing a bowling ball in the big towel. Have you seen that? I feel like I
No,
need to share it.
I need to
I
see
feel like
that.
I need to somehow put it on the
Yeah.
screen, but that would probably be mine, just for it, just for the why I enjoy it. This I don't know really.
I'm trying to look it up.
I think it's this bowling. I might put bowling ball and see if it comes to this one. Have you seen this one before, Judge?
I have not seen that. That is fantastic.
I've got no idea what that film is from, but that's my like go-to.
That's your go-to.
That's my go-to.
Yeah, I get it. It's just that don't take yourself too seriously, guys.
Yeah.
It's just a bowling ball. That's so funny.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh my god.
I honestly did not see us coming. I know I was going to ask you a question about the gift, but I did not think I would then get to that point of me showing a guy with a...
This is where we. This is where we ended up. I love it. It's a good play.
Absolutely. And what I can't wait is at the end of this podcast, it'll be your wife singing us out as well. A great song somewhere.
That would be so. Oh, I'm okay. If she was here, I would get her to do that.
You should.
That would be amazing. I'm gonna get her back here.
And then outside of work, like Carl, I know we
Yeah.
sort of talked about obviously yourself
Yeah,
being
yeah.
here. You got two youngsters, is that right?
Yeah, I got two got 6-year-old twin girls, and they also are getting into football. They're getting some little lionesses in the works here.
Amazing.
So yeah, we're having a good time being just we're out in the countryside, so it's been fun to just like do a lot of the like the public footpaths, and they go riding and all that kind of stuff has been really cool. So yeah, they're young kids, really active and having a great time.
How you finding being here in comparison to obviously you're been in Canada your whole life? How you finding being here for the last year?
Yeah, it's been good. I really enjoyed. We moved countries, but we also moved kind of like from the suburbs to the countryside.
Okay.
And so that, like a lifestyle change from being more suburbia, which is totally fine, to being, we've got a single lane road that comes into our little cottage, like, like that kind
Yeah.
of, those kind of vibes, which for the Canadians listening, yes, the roads are very small, and it's even smaller when there's only one lane. So I spent the first 3 months of my life here trying to figure out, do I know how to drive or not? Because I feel like I'm going to hit someone. But we've loved it, enjoyed that switch. And I think on the personal side, I didn't, I've always lived in relatively kind of the same 2 hours of area in Canada, Toronto area, and moving to a new place. And maybe you've done, people listening have done this. When you go somewhere that's just totally different, it forces you to to grow. And you show up and it's like, oh geez, like we got to get our car fixed, and I don't even know the mechanics, and I can't even ask like my dad for who's a good mechanic. It's like I got to figure this out on my own, and it's like seems so silly, but I the last year has been really cool on like a personal growth level of like experiencing what it is to like find a way through things, and also kind of approach life with just like this different curiosity and wonder, and I think that's been really cool. So I don't know if you've ever experienced that, Luke, because now you got a family, and I'm sure you moved around a few times.
Yeah, well, I'm in Norwich, just outside of Norwich, and I came here in 2012 for a job, thinking I'd be here for 6 months on the contract that I was brought here for, and met my now wife on my first night out, literally in Norwich. That's
Are you serious?
yeah, literally, yeah. Yeah, and then that 6 months.
It's a good movie. I like it.
That 6 month turned into like a permanent job, and then like it just sort of spiraled and has kept going. And we've now got two youngsters. Olivia's 9 and Isaac's is 6 in March. And houses, dogs,
So good.
cat. It's just a very, very different lifestyle. Yeah.
It's not what it was when you met on the first night out.
Oh no, very different. But going back to your point, I came from I was like an Essex, Hertfordshire sort of boy. So living there to Norwich, people like think that Norwich is in the middle of nowhere, but actually when you realise how close it is to a lot of things, and the community in Norwich in terms of like business community is incredible. Like there are some amazing businesses here as well. But also like our house is on one road, as you say as well. Like I can see fields for my garden. Like it's very, very different.
Oh, brilliant.
It is. How have you found the transition from going? I guess that your clients from pb+j have usually been international, more US and Canadian. Are they now more? Are you swinging more towards like bringing the UK clients? How's that sort of gone?
Yeah, they're still mainly in Canada, US. So we've got a few, like we always, even before I moved here, we had a handful, I'd say like, 15 to 20%. And in a year, we're outside of Canada, US, a couple in the UK, a couple in Europe. But we've always been very like, in split half between Canada, US. So that's kind of where we've been. That's maintained. I think as, there's opportunities that come about, and as I'm here, it's been a nice byproduct, but yeah, we're still very heavy in Canada, US.
Okay. And what's the next 12 months look like for yourself, do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. For myself, I mean, continuing to enjoy the single lane road country lifestyle here, and I'm actually looking forward this year to really. Last year I traveled a lot back to Canada and the US, and I'm looking forward to not doing that this year a lot and being here, being with the family and experiencing this. And as pb+j, as we look to 2024, we're really looking at like continuing to fine tune, what's that, really ideal customer, and really excited to be kind of tuning that into really a new offering that we've been piloting this year, which is just as like a small little plug, but we sat down this year and we're like, what if Disney and Zappos and some of these like brands that we love, design agency, what would that look like? And it wouldn't look like how agency is. And so we kind of came to this place where it's like, how do we deliver a lot of value and do it in a way that's like very frictionless and kind of the death of scope? And so we've been piloting this. It's called the pb+j Pass, and we've got 2 patrons on it right now. And it's a flat fee, kind of like unlimited retainer that is all focused around basically, let's set your goals and let's stop fighting over scope and go achieve those goals together. And so we're going to be rolling that out in 2024. And that's like what I'm excited about, is aligning with patrons that want to achieve results. And of course, you don't want to overpay. We don't want to underbill staff, but doing it in a way that sort of says the death of scope and the life of results and partnership. And that's really exciting.
It's a very different way of looking at things as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's my excitement and my plug for 2024.
Love that. Very good. And then
Yeah.
the actual team itself, how big are you, and where are you dotted around the world within PB&J? Are they still sort of more Canada, sort of US,
Yeah.
or?
Yeah. So mostly there. We're only 10 full time, so small and mighty. And we're like, a good bench of freelancers and contractors that come in to support and partners and that kind of stuff. But 10 core full time. And I think I'd say about 75% are still within 2 hours of Toronto, Canada. Most people just stayed at home or maybe moved a bit out of the city. But a few of us, we've got myself in the UK. Our head of design moved to Mexico to be closer to family. We hired someone in Colorado, one person in Argentina. So I think there's about four of us that are outside of Canada now. I did my percentages wrong, but there's a few of us now kind of expanding.
How are you finding that? Because obviously the time differences and all that sort of stuff are very, very different. How are you? Because like
Yeah.
Mexico is like -6 or -7, isn't it? UK time. Canada must be
Yeah.
similar, is it?
Yeah. Toronto is Eastern time, so it's about 5 hours
Yeah.
different. And so the main it's a kind of a thing that we're learning and growing on. So we're still sort of standardized around Eastern Standard Time. So that's kind of our core time. Those that are behind that, they flex a bit. Like, we try to be more asynchronous, but like here's when in the day when we're going to be synchronous. So we try to do that. But like leaning into more asynchronicity is one thing. And then I personally just love to leverage it in different ways. When I moved here, a coach that's working with, said you got to think of like, how do you live differently now that you're in a different time zone? Like what does it look like? And it got me thinking. And I'm one of the co-founders. So as you know, Luke, like, I don't know, work seems like it never stops. So I actually personally don't mind it, because what I do is I get like beautiful quiet mornings where I go for a run, get online, do my deep work, and then about 2 p.m. the team comes online. And then I just hustle through the day with them until about 9 or 10. And that works for me. I'm not advocating for people to
Yeah.
work those, but as founders, that sometimes that's the season. And I like to leverage that in a way that, allows me to get some deep work done and then still be right alongside the team.
Yeah. And I guess that family balance as well, right? Because if your little one's at school, you can do that drop off. You can, as they go for a run, do that sort of stuff, and actually allows you to have that balance, and probably what allows you to then be able to crack on through.
Yeah.
Because that balance is there, isn't it?
Yeah. And then I think for me, it's about like finding out what that looks like. And a lot of that is, it's about, committing on the weekends. So I'll still do a few things on the weekend, but like, Saturdays and Sundays, just really be focused and intentional, be at football practice, be there, turn off the phone. Sundays, have movie night and be present there. Like, and then, Monday to Friday is like, it's full on, it's busy, but like on the weekends, be there. And I think that's what I'm learning about, totally like still have dinner when you can, but like, I'm more of an integration person than a balance person.
Makes sense. And my last question before I let it go: how are you finding English pubs in comparison to, I don't know, Canadian sports bars? I don't know. Is that what they have over there, or is it?
I don't know. Yeah, they're obviously like 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
Yeah, the culture is just so lovely here. I think it's just, of course the beer is great, and I love that. I mean, there's good beer in Canada too, but it's the community aspect I find around pubs, where it's like you go out. Like, I'll two quick stories because I'm so in love with the pubs.
Go for it.
So one quick story is, there's a pub that's like our local pub here. It's got like a play yard in the back garden, and this is the best thing. Brett and I go get a drink, we order a pizza, we have like a Saturday night, the kids play. It's the best. If I were to say that to anybody in Canada, I'd be like, you put a kids play park in a bar? Are you crazy? Why would you bring them so close to that? And I'm like, it's so new, but I think it's such a beautiful thing because it's like, it's so healthy and wonderful. But the other one that I'm just been totally like digging is just the pub culture and the friendship and community of like, tonight we'll go and drop our kids off at jiu-jitsu, and the whole, which is great, they love it. And the whole gig was, some other parents said, guys, you got to get your kids at jiu-jitsu. It's right beside this great pub, and when we drop them off, we all get a pint. And I'm like, sign me up. So tonight we drop them off, we go get a pint for an hour, and everyone's at the pub. It is fantastic. So There's my two reviews for English pub culture.
Love it.
Is the greatest.
Love it. And your tipple of choice? What's the
Yeah.
beer of choice of yours, Carl, before for your last one?
Oh, geez. I'm uh, Luke. This is like pretty lame, but I'm like I just go for lagers often. Get me a good Carlsberg, and I feel like I'm in the pub. But I know that's like not very sophisticated.
Yeah, it's also feel like you can have some better beer choice than a Carlsberg. No offense if anyone's listening from Carlsberg, but there are some better beers out there.
I know. There's a better beer. I'll also always go for a good Guinness. I love Guinness.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, have you done?
maybe I'm stepping up.
Yeah, have you done a Dublin trip yet to have a real Guinness or not?
No, I need to. Have you?
Oh yeah, that's a different story for a different day. Yeah, it's
Okay, brilliant.
highly recommend
Oh,
it.
so good. What's your tipple of choice there? What's your go-to?
I'm more of a Spanish lager man, me. So, I mean, I grew up when my mate used to own the pub. My mate's dad used to own the pub. So when we were like 16, 17, 18, it always used to be like a Foster's top because that was a cheapest sort of beer and it was what you get away with. And you sort of get better. You can't put in more like your Moretti's, your Crans Coupos or your anything like that really. That's sort of more my tipple. Or I don't mind an Estrella. There's an Estrella in the fridge for me for turns 5 later on.
Solid.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh, that'd be so good.
Yeah. Again, another idea for a podcast there is probably to get someone on talking about the best beer choices they've got. This has been a very different podcast, by the way, Carl, than what I've had previously. So I'm looking forward to this going out.
Hopefully it's what you wanted. I guess if it's not, people should just call you and book a time with you and talk about culture and hiring and people and all the good things. If you didn't get it from this podcast, you just email Luke and he'll give it to you on a phone call. Is that fair?
Well, there is that, but also this is all around actually hearing about the e-commerce brands that are changing, e-commerce agencies that are have actually taken a chance and have done it. And that's what you guys have done. And
yeah,
it took balls to make that decision. I know you didn't know what was coming up, obviously, in 2020, but it took balls to make that decision and to know that's where you wanted to go. And obviously, the work you're delivering is incredible as well. So, kudos to you, mate, and to Tom. Obviously, shout out to Tom, of course.
Yes, well, of course, Tom. I'm here just kind of trying to look pretty, but Tom is fantastic. He's the better looking and the funnier co-founder. So next time you got at him.
Next time, mate. Thank you so
thanks,
much.
Luke, appreciate it, and cheers to you too, man. I know you're up to some good stuff, and I respect the courage you've had to jump out into e-commerce and launch and to help connect great people with agencies and with brands and tech. So keep at it.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate you as well.